Hello everyone, welcome to Technology Looks Good to Me, Tech LGTM. This is me, Shashank, and with my co-host Preet and Amol. A lot of things have happened in last few days, and we are trying to cover a few of the things which we think is very, very interesting for us, and I think it would be very interesting for you guys also. So over to you, Amol. What do you think we should cover first?
I think it was a very exciting day today. Facebook launched their new VR headset, and then also they announced few of the AR initiatives. I will go over a few of them one by one. So let's talk about the most interesting one. So some history, few months back, Facebook announced that they are going to combine the AR, VR, and their brain interface initiative into a common lab called Reality Lab. And the first product coming out of that is the Aria AR glasses. And as part of that, they are going to basically give the AR glasses to their 100 employees and also a few contractors. Right now, the goal is only to gather the data and then improve the glasses, because what they have learned from the previous companies like Google Glasses or the Snapchat spectacles is that if they do not handle the privacy properly, then there's a lot of backslash, right? And that's why they want to actually learn from those experiences, give it to the employees early, and then at least try it for 1 year. And then after 1 year or 1.5 years, they want to launch it probably for the common people.
So
And
they
Facebook has kind of been notorious, right, with privacy. I mean, they've always been in the news. So,
yeah, yeah.
Yes, Facebook has been particularly very, very notorious in the privacy laws. So I think this time they are being extra cautious.
I have a question, Amol. Why did they announce it actually? Like, if it's not going to be for the general public, what was it? Like, I have not followed that news actually. I know that you are very interested in always AR and VR stuff. You have done a lot of stuff in your past history. Uh, so, any reason like they launched it today? Why? If I cannot get it within a few months or weeks, then what's the point actually?
I think the way industry is shaping up, and especially the big players are moving the pieces, it becomes a very obvious choice for them to make an announcement. For example, Apple is working on their AR glasses. It is very well known. They file a lot of patents. They seem to be in a very advanced stage right now to launch anytime. In
mm,
fact, many people were speculating that they will launch their AR glasses in the September 15th announcement. So that's one reason. Other thing is that in general, Facebook has been not being very successful in the hardware sector,
Yeah,
right? They have been
right.
very
yeah.
successful in the social network, and they want to actually leapfrog with that and then make an announcement and also attract as many talent as possible, right? As they are working on this one.
Oh, I see what they have done. Probably they took a leaf out of Elon Musk's book, like they when he announced Neuralink. That's another topic we can discuss later on. Uh, but this was probably more towards engineers and developers, or they have some like as a developer, can I actually take advantage of this announcement, or I still have to wait?
You still have to
It's
wait.
just for.
It's
I think it was mostly for PR, as Amol said, because if 15th was Apple's big day and they didn't come out with it, then Facebook just had to be the first ones saying that, hey guys, we are coming out with something really special.
Okay.
And but personally, I like Mark Zuckerberg. I have been following his updates also. A few weeks back, also he posted that he's been huge on AR VR and he's trying to shape the entire company. And probably I shared it with you also, Shashank, that a small snippet of his post on Facebook where he said he's going to advocate AR VR and AR VR is the future for Facebook
Yeah. I
going
think they did
forward.
something. Amol was saying something about that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think the Facebook has been actually big on the AR VR from last 4 5 years, and they are the biggest player at least right now. And their Oculus Quest, the new headset, is actually very very impressive in that, right? And it's much better than many of the other headsets right now. One thing I wanted to talk about basically the AR glasses is that their initial prototype looks very interesting. For example, if they have the glasses like this is not the normal AR glasses, but their prototype looks like they have a lot of the machinery over here and the sides, and they have two cameras on the both the sides of the glasses. Um, Ultimately, they want to actually do the eye tracking, and the eye tracking could be possible, hey, Shashank, with the spectacles.
You mean
the
something like this?
Yeah, Shashank is a spectacle right now.
Yes, the cameras are exactly almost similar placed in the Facebook
Is it
AR.
very similar to the
Something on the
Google glasses?
side. So I
Amol?
mean, didn't Snapchat already did it?
Snapchat, Google glasses, right? Both of them did it.
Yes, they did it, but basically, the projection on the glasses is missing, first of all. So if I want to see the live map, if I'm walking on a street, and then I cannot see that. Second thing is the eye tracking. If I'm looking at a grocery, I want to understand more about that particular stuff,
Yeah.
then looking at basically my eyes with the machine learning that where exactly what is
Is
my
eye looking?
field of view, I can
Yeah.
actually figure it out, right? So those are actually very good things that they are trying to do. And if that works out, it's going to be a game changer in the industry of the AR.
So Amol, since you founded VR Commerce in 2016, what are you thinking now? Like it was that then you moved on to other things also, right? How would have you felt if you continued working in this space like more actively? And
Oh yeah, talk about some devices and sets you had, and because you have, I remember you were showing off quite a few devices to me compared to what they announced just now, Oculus Quest 2, and devices you had. Like, where do you think the industry has moved in these many years?
yeah,
That's a very good question, I think.
And I will add another question on top of that.
let him answer one.
I think it's very much related to that. Like, why there it's still not a mass adoption, or like what is stopping the VR and AR kind of stuff yet? Uh, like, it's still not mainstream yet, except some
Correct.
AR users. Yeah.
So quite a few questions you have asked, and I'll cover why AR has not picked up so far, why VR has not picked up so far, and then why I stopped working on the VR commerce at that time. So main reason that I stopped working on the AR or VR commerce that time was because that time the HoloLens were there in the AR and it was very heavy. I could not wear it more than 2 minutes because it used to start paining in my nose. If basically those things are actually converted into this smart glasses, I would love to work on it again, possibly, right? Because then the chances of mass adoption becomes huge. That's for the AR. For the VR, what happened is the price point for the headsets were very big. All my VR headsets, like HTC Vive and Sony PlayStation VR, they were actually north of $1,000.
Wow.
Facebook launched a new VR headset, which is Oculus Quest 2, and the price they have decreased to $299.
Yeah.
That's
How much was Oculus when Oculus was not taken over by Facebook? They were an independent company. I think they were still north of 1,000 or something, right? Or
Pretty expensive.
it was pretty expensive. I think they did not launch a consumer product. They were still in the development, and I think it was grabbed by basically Facebook.
I think we can check on that, but I think there were some availability there. But you know better than me, I guess.
Yeah. So, but whatever came as a first product from the Facebook was also expensive, right? But now the prices are going down. The technology has improved so much. The quality of actually pixels inside and the frame rate in the headsets has improved so much. So there is a chance of actually some adoption again. One of the reasons that it is still not picked up by the masses is that um, the dizziness that you feel after 2 or 3 minutes of wearing it, because your brain is not able to comprehend what is reality and what is basically the just technology and the frames when you are inside and immersed inside the VR, right?
Yeah.
So
I think the refresh rates also matters a lot in that, right? Like the reality, like there's no refresh rate, and in the screen you have to have some kind of refresh rate.
exactly, right. So refresh rate is also one thing, and those have improved, right, with the new technology and the new chips that are coming with the GPU, right? The other thing is um, the killer app in the VR space. If you ask me which one is the killer app, I don't have an answer right now. There are few of the very interesting apps like Earth VR is one of them, but anything that has gone viral where everyone is ready to try, that app has not come out yet. And the other
Like
thing I
when,
think,
Amol, when you say app, is it mostly just games always? Like, is it always virtual reality? Is always people tend to start with games?
that is seems to be its niche adoption so far, right? But not even a mass adoption in that games. So there's a small set of users or the gamers who are using it for the games.
I think the game is like when I want to play a game, is I want to play it for half an hour, 1 hour, or something. That's what like when people are doing Xbox or PlayStation. with that headset, like as Amol was saying, like if you put it for 5 minutes, you start feeling dizzy. Who
But
will actually?
what is the experience that you, if you, Amol, you have been working with VR for quite some time, right? Like, what are you looking for when you try out AR app? Oh, sorry, VR app. Like,
I need two things. First of all, I should be able to wear that for 4 hours without feeling dizzy, right?
not the
That's
headset, like in an app itself. Like, what experience are you looking for? What experience are we talking about?
a great question, right? So VR is always
I
known
can think
for
of a lot of things, but probably offline. Let's talk offline.
So one of the obvious one is actually the teleportation. That means right now I would love to travel with the COVID situation. I'm not able to travel. But if I want to explore, let's say Africa, I wanted to actually travel to South Africa this particular summer. I'm not able to do that. I want experience of actually doing a safari or at least in the VR and being immersed in that space and then the animals around me. Case with so many people are not able to travel to so many interesting places, and VR was always the promising thing that it will solve the problem of the travel, and it is not able to do that. With Google Earth, it's one of the very promising apps in the VR, and people use that. But
Yeah.
still, the experience is not 100% right there, right? It is actually almost close to 60% there, to be
Yeah.
very
You know,
close.
there's one app that solved this problem about 5 years ago. Photoshop.
You can travel anywhere, wherever you want. That's a good one, Preet. So yeah, I mean, this is a good event by Facebook. I think it's still a small step towards what the AR and VR would look like in future. So good that their companies, they have multi-billion-dollar companies are actually behind those, and hopefully in next few years we might see real good adoption and real good applications about AR and VR. On that event, like
Totally.
as you mentioned, Preet, Apple did there was some talk about Apple, like Apple did their own event yesterday.
They did. I mean, 15th September, it was, for me, I had it bookmarked in my calendar. I really wanted I watched it also. And it was, honestly, guys, it was super underwhelming. I mean, I was kind of excited. I was actually looking forward to buying the new Apple Watch. And I was waiting because I was so tempted to buy Series 5, but I thought a lot of good updates are going to come in. And Apple is kind of notorious where it doesn't really give out what they're going to be showcasing. So I thought there'll be a ton of good, interesting features. But I think there's only one feature that it's worth talking about is the ability to start monitoring your O2 levels, like your blood oxygen levels,
Yeah.
uh, through your Apple Watch. So, I mean, especially during these times, during this pandemic, if you're symptomatic, it can really be helpful. But for me, I don't know really what am I going to do with a Series 6 watch, with absolutely no difference.
You know what they are
Uh,
going to do in Series 7? I
what?
have an idea for them. Blood alcohol level.
Yeah, I mean, sure. But who's going to monitor it? Am I going to drink and monitor it myself?
Yeah, exactly. Like, can you drive or not? Tell you. Yeah, you can drive now.
Nice.
I think on that, they would basically, if the glucose level is monitored in the blood, right? That could be
Yeah.
a very, very interesting feature. A lot of people need
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah.
It's a pain to actually prick yourself. Um, but that's the one feature that
I mean,
Apple.
Apple is good at picking your wallet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Apple does a great job with that. I mean, with every release, it makes sure that it creates a big dent. And
Yeah,
even if you're not an Apple fanboy or a fangirl, you still end up spending a lot of money.
yeah. A lot of people actually sell their kidney to buy a new iPhone. So yeah.
So, I mean, there was, I mean, keeping our conversations in line with the Apple event. I mean,
Yeah,
Shashank, so I know that you have a Tesla,
yeah.
and you have this car key, right? Automated car key. So it could be useful for you. I mean, where there's a new chip called U1 chip that they introduced with the Series 6 watch that you can control your car with.
So
So it
Tesla
could
already
be,
had something like that, like from I can unlock my car from my app,
yeah.
and I remember one of my friend he made a watch app to unlock Tesla. But
Okay, like a third
what
party
they have
app.
actually done, probably they might have done is like other cars, they've been enabled other cars can actually now be opened through an app or through your watch.
Oh,
So
that was
Preet,
only for Tesla.
Yeah, that was only for Tesla. Tesla app can actually
Got it.
remotely unlock stuff. And then they didn't have the watch app. Surprisingly, the Tesla should have done that. But
Yeah.
one of my friend actually made an app for that.
Preet, did they announce basically other car makers adopting that their chip technology for unlocking their cars? Did they announce any other car maker?
And
Or
the
just
only
Tesla?
I only know of Tesla. I mean, there could be, I'm sure, because other cars also adopting the same model,
Mhm.
where like the car key, that's what they call it. That's the term for it.
Oh, so
Uh,
maybe it's like maybe I'm not getting it. Maybe it's like you don't even need to carry your keys then maybe.
yeah, you don't
You
need
even
to. You can just use your watch.
Oh, so now in Tesla, I still have to carry my key. I can unlock
Yeah.
from the watch or app, but you still have to have the key. So maybe what you're saying is like key becomes obsolete. You just walk into your car and
Yep.
it works as a remote key actually, like because
Pretty
in
much.
Tesla, you're not putting key anywhere. It's there in the pocket and the car works.
Yeah,
So
you can use
what-
your watch to unlock your car,
yeah,
and
that's
pretty much so it would be useful. I mean, for
Actually,
like car owners.
there's actually this experience of not taking out anything from your pocket and then
Yeah.
just open door is actually magical. You have to
right,
actually
right,
use
right,
that
right.
once to see
That's
that.
like that's very obvious of Apple Pay kind of stuff. Like you just tap and go kind of. Now you can
Yeah,
drive
yeah.
your car, you can get into your car without actually. I mean, yeah, I mean it takes 2 seconds to take your keys out, but I mean
What if you forget your keys at home, but you still have your watch on, right? Because you're never going to remove your watch.
that's true. That's true.
That's
But
right.
speaking of watches, so they did release a new segment of watches, like they always do. They released a Series SE kind of Apple Watch.
Yeah,
So,
that's
I mean, it could be interesting. I mean, I don't really know whether that would be what kind of adoption would that have. But it's those of you who are interested, it's $80 cheaper than $80 more than the Series 3 watch.
oh, $80
Uh,
more than Series 3.
yeah, because
Right.
but the good thing is Series 3, the watch OS is going to get obsolete like this year.
Okay.
But here you get 3 more extended years of the same watch OS.
So one thing I'm curious about is that they always launch, like even in the iPhone, the SE versions, right? The
Yeah.
cheaper versions relatively. And what I've heard is that they usually target the markets which is like India or other places
Yeah,
where the price point
more
which is
international
purchase for
than
is much
US actually.
lower. Probably they are targeting for that kind of market. Have you heard anything about anyone heard anything about the mass adoption of those cheaper phones from the Apple? Because they do launch these things now, even with the Apple Watch. Also, we have not seen that launching the SE version of the Apple Watch before. So this strategy might be working for the phones. That's why they are trying.
I mean, I think clearly it's working because they don't stop it. They keep on producing that with every new version of the
The,
phones
uh,
they come out with.
the advantage with Apple Watch is that I don't see there's any other watch who even close
No.
like to Apple Watch what they have done and the way they are actually like even though I think Preet you were not too excited about the upgrades, but they are still miles and miles ahead of all the smartwatches out there.
Oh, absolutely. I
So
mean, there's no
there's no
comparison.
competition, so there's no pressure on Apple to actually be expedite certain features they might be in the labs and working
I
because
think they've also
they know.
spoiled us
Yeah,
because they've also spoiled us. They've given us this huge divide between what is there in the market versus what Apple has. Now our expectations have just increased.
yeah.
That
At least on
with
the
every
Apple
year
Watch
we
is
have to come
actually
up with something nice. Yeah.
one place where I think like Apple did a great job was Apple Watch. Like every other when they release a new iOS feature or something or a new iPhone, if you look at internet, like what discussion happens in US, people are excited. All over the world, they're like, "Oh, great catching up, Apple. We had this feature 4 years back or 5 years back." All the Android
Yeah.
people will just trash Apple, saying that, "Welcome to the future."
But there's a prime difference, though. I mean, yes, Google has done that. A lot of Android phones have done that. There have been Android watches in the market since ages, like probably 5 or 6 years ago, ahead of Apple's time. But what about the quality of them? I mean, do you see that they are at par with what Apple produces? Because Apple has been always been known for that, right? Yes, it's on the pricier point for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
like I think like sometimes they do more gimmicky stuff. Apple does make sure that it's like ready from the prime time. But the quality of phones, if you look at Samsung's, they're not bad actually. Like I've seen some of the Android phones, they are pretty good. It's like people are really like
Hmm.
a lot of people in, especially in America, they are biased against Android. But if you look at stuff, the only disadvantage of Android is it's a very fragmented world. Apple ecosystem together
It's
plays a really
controlled.
good role.
Yeah, totally. I mean, exactly. I mean, for you guys also, for me, I mean, with Mac and my phone and it's a seamless ecosystem. I love that.
Yeah,
It's
actually, you know what?
a
About
black
five,
hole. It's a black
about
hole. Get sucked into
An
it.
Apple hole.
about 5 years ago, I was carrying both the Samsung and then iPhone for at least for a few years together, right? Because I had two phones that time. And then my natural choice to actually pick up a phone and then make a call or use anyone was iPhone, right? And
Yeah.
I tried very hard to actually use both consistently to see that. But at that time, Samsung was nowhere close as seamless experience. But what I've seen in the last 4 5 years is that the everything in the Samsung and Android has improved a lot,
Oh yeah,
right?
oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
the experience has improved considerably. So the divide has actually narrowed very well in
Yeah,
experience.
yeah. It's
I
just the
mean, we
rise
could
with
definitely make this a Android versus iOS debate, but I just,
then we
I want to
might have
tell
to
you guys
invite
about.
people actually. Yeah, we might have to
I
invite
actually
people who
really
are
want to tell you guys about a couple of things that I really am excited that came out of this Apple's underwhelming release. Something good came out also. Uh, so Apple actually recently also launched Apple Fitness Plus. So for it's like a direct competition to Peloton, where they have something. They have a 9.99 per month subscription, and or $79 per year.
yeah.
But this is kind of interesting, where you have group classes, fitness classes on the app, and you and your watch, and also your app, your fitness app on your iPhone gets connected to it. So I think for all the people who are working out from their homes right now, I think this could be a really good addition, where Peloton is definitely on the pricier point.
Yeah,
Apple finds a middle ground and comes up with something like Apple Fitness Plus,
yeah,
and it also has committed that it's going to start putting new fitness tutorials every week. So I think this could be and moving along with oxygen levels, with what
yeah,
you
yeah.
suggested, that probably
I
in the
can see that.
future. So Apple is making their way into this whole ecosystem.
So basically, with Peloton, clearly they launched this thing, Fitness Plus, looking at the success of Peloton, right? There's no question about it.
Yeah,
Peloton has basically about close to 1 million users, and then the approval rating is close to 97%. So everyone is a big fan who are
yeah.
uses Peloton. So do you think that Apple Fitness is going to be at par with Peloton with their current ecosystem? What
So
do you
I'm
think
going
about
to honestly confess. I mean, I ordered a Peloton, so I'm going to, I'm going to get Apple Fitness, and I'm going to compare the two, and I'm going to tell you maybe in the next couple of
it?
We can have
discussions
a
that we have.
podcast on Peloton actually for yeah, that's crazy. One thing I want to highlight about the Fitness Plus, when you talked about it has 999 per month.
Yeah,
Like one thing which has bothered me, and we can discuss about this in
yeah.
other podcasts for sure, is like Apple comes out and launches apps when they see there's a lot of demand about it. So they create the marketplace. They have different developers who are actually creating apps like that, and then Apple comes in. And the
Yeah.
worst part about this whole stuff is Apple charges 30% tax on all those apps who are like Peloton has some kind of subscription fee there. You have to use Apple's in-app payment, and there has been a lot. Like we should actually definitely do one podcast on that.
So Shashank, I don't know why we forgot this, or why I particularly, but this was also a part of that highlight as part of Apple's event. Spotify again brought up that 30% rule and said that this is bad that Apple is still doing that. So
Yeah,
Spotify,
that's crazy
they,
actually. Like
they,
you are
they
competing in the
always
market, you have undue advantage of that
yeah,
marketplace that you are not paying 30% to the other developers, right? Your 30% is yours, and now you're charging all the people you. I'm going to compete in the marketplace I create, and I will charge you 30% on top of whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we can discuss this in a different podcast. But then this is a fight going on between the Fortnite
Yeah.
the company and this one. So it is a very interesting developing story right now. And then Apple has changed some rules in their App Store also to adjust something. But um, definitely something that we can discuss in the
Yeah.
future
Yeah.
podcast.
Cool.
Yeah, Shashank, I don't think there are other things that Apple did, but I don't think they're worth mentioning. Honestly, it will be wasting our time talking about them.
So it was just a simple step, actually. That's fine.
Oh, actually, but I think what we were having a discussion right before this was because the one surprising thing was they did not give out any information about the new iPhone.
Yeah.
Yes. So
So usually this is the time that they release the new iPhone, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of news about. I think what happened with the COVID situation. They are running behind in the production of iPhones, and there is some
Of
speculation
course.
that they would do another event in October. It's a speculation, but they might do
Yeah, I can
another.
probably make an educated guess why the assembly line is broken down right now. I mean,
Uh,
it's just a guess. It's a random guess, but
yeah. I don't.
it will definitely be a random guess.
Very random, actually. So yeah, I mean, like in October, most likely they might have another event because I can bet
okay.
if they don't have a new iPhone in the holiday season, they're gonna miss out. Like the shares are gonna drop like crazy. So they
Yeah.
will somehow manage to actually make sure that the holiday season demand, they cater to that because that's when they sell a lot of phones.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, Shushan, today was another big event about the IPO of the Snowflake, right? And that's
Yeah,
a very interesting
Ooh,
company. You
actually
want to talk more
Snowflake.
about that?
Yeah, it was
yeah.
Snowflake IPO today. I'm not sure anybody of our audience they know Snowflake. Some might know, but majority might not know what Snowflake is. So it's a cloud data platform which IPO'd today, and there was a really crazy mad rush in Wall Street to get the stocks of Snowflake. So Snowflake turned out to become a snowstorm today. Bad joke.
Yeah,
No,
it was, Shashank. It was really bad.
Thank you, Preet, for that. So, yeah. Getting back to Snowflake, they tried to raise 3.4. They raised 3.4, not right. They raised $3.4 billion. So it was one of the largest IPO since I don't know the year, but it has been in a couple of decades. This has been the largest IPO ever.
Couple of decades. Okay.
Yeah. They sold 28 million shares to raise $3.4 billion. The stock popped 111% on day one. I'm not kidding.
That's the closing.
I'm going to
That's
repeat.
yeah.
Yeah, 111% gain on day one.
So, what was so special today that about this IPO that it popped so much? What is so special about the Snowflake?
First IPO in the pandemic, probably. I think
No,
that's also one of the things.
A lot of build-up.
This pandemic if you look at it, the rate of IPOs happening in while this pandemic, especially on the tech companies, is crazy. It has never been seen before. Kind of, the companies are lining up. Unity is doing it. There are like hundreds of companies that are lined up to IPOs in the next few months. A very interesting thing actually. The sage of Omaha, Mr. Warren Buffett, who never used to invest in technology companies, and he never used to participate in any of the IPOs. That was his.
Interesting.
That was his thing. Like he will never participate in an IPO. So he participated for the very first time in an IPO, and he bought stocks of Snowflake.
Do we know how much did he buy and how much did he make? Because I'm sure that is public information by now.
Yeah, it is public information. He made only $800 million. $800 million.
That's it. Yeah.
So at the high of Snowflake stock price today, he could have made $1 billion on one day.
On day one.
On that pop, on the day one. So now I'm sure Warren Buffett would be thinking, why didn't I participate in other IPOs before?
Well, as
Oh,
compared
just
to
to
what,
give everybody, sorry, Amol, go ahead.
so as compared to basically what he made in Apple, close to 80 billion in their search, 800 million does look small, but it's
No,
still
it's
a big
not.
number as
You
such.
have to see like one day. That's
One
day
day.
one.
Yes, yes,
So
I
he
agree.
practically he invested pre like in the IPO, like he was one of those investors who do before it goes for the public. So one day of trading, if you make 800 million, that's crazy actually. That's unheard of.
That could be some kind of record also.
Yeah, yeah. I think there would be. I'm sure.
So in terms of the platform of the Snowflake, and Shashank, you have worked in the other data companies also, right? What do you think is why? Yeah, I'm data driven.
I'm data
So
driven.
what's
So
your
Rai Shashank is actually wearing a T-shirt that says "I'm data driven." Those of you who are listening,
Yeah.
I hope that you purchased some of the Snowflake's stocks.
No. I think I never participate in IPOs generally, especially in this pop. If you see, their IPO price was initially they were targeting $75 to $85 as an IPO listing price. Then they saw the demand and they went up to 120. So 120 was the IPO price. But when the real market opens, they mark to market before it opens actually. So it never opened at 120. It opened at 250 something. So who gained actually? Not the normal people actually who invested. The investors, the lead
the banks.
bank.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
The bank. So there were four banks involved. They were the lead banks in this IPO: Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan,
Of course.
and
Yeah.
Citigroup. And out of that,
The
those
usual
there are
suspects.
three companies where somebody here has worked in all three of those companies.
Guilty. I mean, they easily make up to 4-5% with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I don't know what the deal was. Since it was a very, very large, one of the largest IPO ever,
Yeah.
the percentage goes down. Based on that, they can really negotiate that percentage down because they were raising $3.4 billion.
Yeah.
So that's how it happens. But
But
if I yeah,
these were the three underwriters, right? Four underwriters, and they probably also had. Did they also play advisory during the IPO, or it was purely underwriting?
I have no idea about that. I didn't research too much on that. Like
Okay.
not.
So I think what I'm confused about is that Snowflake is not that well-known company in the enterprise space and data. Yeah, they are known, but they are not Uber Lyft, right? That is not known for everyone.
Yeah,
For
because it's
that
not a
company,
consumer company. It's a business B2B, more like 100% B2B company.
yeah, for not being that well known and then share popping so much, it is not common, right?
Yeah, so
In
the
the
last
IPO.
private valuation round when they raised the money, probably in hundreds of millions, they raised probably $479 million or something last round. They call it Series G. Like so, they went to A, B, C, D. They went up to
Oof.
G. They raised a lot of money, and their internal valuation that time, private valuation was 12 point something billion dollars. So less than 13 billion,
12.34.
so 12
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
$12.5 billion to be precise. And if you look at today, it's valued at around, close to around like $70 billion.
And when are we talking about? Do you know when the valuation was done? Was it this year? Early this year?
Yeah, this year I have to check on that. Like I think it was in no, not this year actually. They were already making decent money. So I think it was 2018.
2018 was the last private valuation.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But like from 12 to $70 billion today is huge, man. Like in a couple of years,
Yeah.
5 times.
Shashank, can you talk a little bit about what Snowflake is all about? Like, because I'm sure a lot of people, as you said,
Yeah,
probably don't even know what Snowflake is.
And then
yeah.
also what their moat looks like, right? What is their main thing that why enterprise is actually very big fan of the Snowflake, especially
Yeah.
when all the cloud providers have their data products.
Yeah. That's where like it's a kind of mind-boggling that they launched the first product in I think they launched the company in 2012. I was not even actually playing too much on big data side of things. Like I was barely 2013 is the year when I started actually looking into Hadoop stuff. And then Spark, Preet, or you have also worked on
Yeah.
Spark, Apache Spark. And
But that was
2015,
much
yeah,
later.
yeah,
2015 was when it started
yeah.
properly.
And then I was working for Publicis. I was doing a lot of stuff. Introduced Spark there, did a lot of stuff there. Uh, Snowflake was taking on the market that time, and they rode that wave of big data stuff, like where big data became big. Everyone was actually talking about. Everyone had data, a lot of data, but they didn't had any idea like how to actually analyze it and do build those pipelines. So Snowflake focused on that, and they built something which was cloud agnostic. So whether you are on AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, Snowflake made a product which is cloud agnostic, and they make the data sharing very, very easy, like data lake, a lot of plugins and a lot of stuff made for data science stuff. So I think like in my personal opinion, it's more about build versus buy. You can actually build all those things. A lot of companies hire
Yeah.
team of like 40, 50 engineers to actually build data pipelines, data science team. If you combine everything, it would be 40, 50, easily 40, 50 engineers actually, somebody, 10 people
Oh,
or few people in.
easily like a good. You need a good solid team. And I was on in multiple banks. I was part of those teams that were trying to build exactly what Snowflake did. But
And then
the
yeah, we were also doing the same thing. Actually, we were trying to standardize the data. Like, okay, in this company, this is the data. Every team should actually feed off this data rather than this becomes the golden copy and everything. But for large companies, I have seen there's a lot of inefficiencies involved in that. Multiple teams, different organizations, different departments have their own way of doing things, and there's no standardization. And so much data fragmentation, even inside companies, like especially the large Fortune 500,000
oh yeah,
companies, they have so much data fragmentation. They have no idea what other team kind of data they are collecting, and they have. And that's where the Snowflake plays a really big role. That okay, we standardize the data. This is where all the data lake and all those things will happen, and data sharing becomes very, very easy across platform.
Do you think
And
also one of the main things of their success story was because they were one of the main public offerings of some similar kind of a product or ecosystem? Because there
they,
was a private,
uh,
there was inbuilt in-house technologies that
I
people were
think
doing.
there are other players also have, I would not say very, very similar offering, but competing in the same space like Databricks,
Yeah,
Cloudera, uh, and there are other also
Hortonworks. Yeah,
like
there are a
even
bunch.
yeah.
Mapr is huge. Yeah.
There's another one which actually Vertica, for example. There are quite a few like data lake kind of solution. Even Amazon has their own Redshift and quite a few things like
Yeah.
that. But somehow Snowflake was able to actually capture the market, and they're like Amol was saying about something like there's quite a few companies they wanted to do something, but Snowflake demos are really well good.
Yeah, so I can explain. So, as part of the Google data engineering team and machine learning team, we were talking to the clients and we were talking about the BigQuery. And many of these enterprise users are actually using the Snowflake, especially in the Bay Area, right? And for them to actually switch from Snowflake, and even though when we give the demo of the, or gave the demo of the BigQuery, the data warehouse solution of the Google, they were not completely sold, right? So I think the being cloud agnostic and also the ability to create the workflows so easily. That means once the data is uploaded by a data engineer, then that same data can be used in multiple workflows by the other developers. That's a killer application right there. Many of the other cloud providers are trying to do that, and they claim that they have a parallel product to their data warehouse to create these workflows, but it is not as smooth as and as efficient as the Snowflake.
So I have a
So, guys,
question
I have
for
a
you.
question. Yeah.
Right.
So, my question is, yes, there is a problem that we clearly understood that. But do you guys actually think that that problem was this big that it is worth $70 billion, and also that it increased to 100% on the day that it IPO'd? That I do acknowledge that they did an amazing job.
The stock popping is definitely. I mean, we can debate about it. What the future looks like, nobody knows. Stock popping is like always market driven. Like Warren Buffett's first time investing in IPO. A lot of people actually want to do that. So that happens. So I don't know whether there's a correlation there with the technology and the platform. Like majority of the people who have bought the stock, if you ask them, they have no idea what it is actually, but they just
Yeah,
want.
exactly. That's exactly because
So
I mean,
you can reach to the
because that's
potential
the
where like you can look at the stock where like market is like totally nobody knows like what the science behind that pop is. Like if I was the founder of
Snowflake.
Snowflake,
Yeah.
do you think I would be happy today? Let's take a guess. Do you think I would be happy today with the stock performance and everything?
Maybe not, because.
You have to say yes, and then I'll say.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, absolutely no.
I mean, as a founder, as a investors, they will all, of course, be happy in that case, right? In general, why would they be not happy? Because their stock. That's the main reason that they launched their IPO. But
yeah.
but I think why it popped, I feel like it went through a Tesla effect. What is going on in the stock market right now, right? You see the Tesla price. It's unrealistic at this point of time. Same is the case with here. It's unusual times with the COVID, and the people are hungry for the technology stocks. Is what I see overall.
So I would say on the IPO side, if I was the founder, I would be totally very, very unhappy today. Because I sold $28 million shares to raise $3.4 billion at the IPO price. I, as a founder, sell that stock at the IPO price that was 120. The stock ended at the day today $253. Yep. I would have sold only 14 million shares, less than 14 million shares to raise the same kind of money. If I would have known like, okay, there's so much pent up demand for my stock, why would I?
But Shashank, that is so hard to know. I mean, yes. I mean,
I think that's
no. I see.
Hindsight.
You have to see. Look at like the companies. We both work for Goldman Sachs. We know that. But you hire these banks to do certain kind of due diligence, and one of the part of the due diligence is okay. You have to tell me the IPO price. What is the right price for the market? You have to, because price is based on demand. So if that means they kind of failed on actually guessing the demand, like how big it can go.
But Shashank, this brings me to the previous point that we just talking about. Like that, yes, there is technology, but is there demand for this company worth being 70 billion? Maybe because then you raised a good point, because it was probably Warren Buffett investing the first time, because it was the first time an IPO being there in pandemic. So those factors could also have played a very big role in creating it.
111% pop is like on the day one is actually, I as a founder, like I wish one day that happens to me and you, then I would be happy. I will be very happy to be pissed.
So basically, I think if I'm the founder in that case, I do get a lot of money, right? I have a lot of
the other stocks, yes,
right? So you cannot ignore that fact, especially when he's running against such a big cloud providers. He needs a lot of power to actually fight against them for a longer time.
Like I don't want to talk too much about bank stuff, but they actually kind of, I would say, screwed up.
They always, I mean, but they benefited. But they benefited. They were not on the losing
They benefit
end.
A lot actually, because if you look at all the founders and employees, they cannot sell the stock right now. Even if IPO'd, if I was an employee of that company, they always have a lock-in period. They cannot take advantage of it. If the stock crashes, they are not going to take advantage of it. Only people who participate in the pre-IPO, the stocks are allocated in the market. Okay, these are the investors who are actually buying it before the bell opens.
Investors, the sales reps, the bankers.
They make so much money actually today. And they don't have lock-in period.
They don't. They
generally they don't have. I don't know about the details over here. They might have.
Usually no. I mean, highly unlikely.
Because that's where they negotiate on the rates. You go down on the IPO listing rates, but then you actually make sure that you make enough. There's enough pop that you can make a huge amount of money. But this was one of the biggest pop. Really, one of the biggest pop. So yeah, this was a very interesting discussion today. Like we covered.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Facebook.
A lot of diverse topics discussed today.
Yeah. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this conversation. We'll continue our podcast. If you have ideas, do let us know. Of course, Preet, can you say the subscribe stuff?
Sure, guys. I mean, do follow the hashtag TechLGTM. And I mean, if you have any suggestions, you can drop us a comment on YouTube. I think that's something that we would love to understand and see if you guys like these podcasts. Ideas are highly encouraged, and we are probably going to get a couple of guests in the next couple of podcasts. So that should be really interesting. So
Yep.
stay tuned, guys.
Yeah.
And
So
do share our podcast with your friends and family.
do that
Yeah.
actually. And just to remind, we are available now on on Apple. We are available on Spotify, Anchor, and there are a few more podcast stuff. And of course, we record this as a video and we put it on YouTube also. So you can actually go on our pages. Tech LTGM is taken by us. That's you can find everywhere. We are everywhere. So follow us and stay tuned. We'll come back soon.
See you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.